What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of Two Fools and Fantasy Football. I am riding solo today. My partner in crime, Marty McFly, is not on this video. It is going to be me. We are sorely going to miss him, but right now I am going to give you the top 5 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends for this week, and also 5 guys with plus matchups and 5 guys with minus matchups. We're going to call this the 5-5-5 or the triple nickel. So coming in first, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks who have the most advantageous matchups this weekend. The quarterbacks with the top 5 who are going to have the most points. Coming at number 5 is going to be Matthew Stafford, the LA Rams versus the Arizona Cardinals. Look for that game to have a lot of points. Number 4, Jalen Hurts, the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are not that great on defense. Number 3, Russell Wilson versus the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners just had a couple more cornerbacks that got shut down this last week, so look for Russell Wilson to feast in San Francisco. The next guy we're going to talk about is the revenge game of the century with Tom Brady going up against the old New England Patriots. We have Tom Brady number 2 this week just because of the fact that it's a revenge game, and Tom Brady does not. He is going to ball out this weekend. And the guy who is going to be number 1 for all the point scoring quarterbacks this week is going to be Josh Allen, who has a plus matchup against the Houston Texans. 5 quarterbacks to stream up on your radar, guys with plus matchups. The first one is Joe Burrow. Cincinnati going against a porous Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, on Thursday night tonight. So look for him to have a lot of points. The next one we're going to talk about is Baker Mayfield going against Minnesota. Minnesota's having a tough time guarding anybody. Another guy at the plus matchup is Ryan Tannehill versus the Jets. Also, another is Matt Ryan versus the Washington football team. And the last guy who has a very nice plus matchup is Taylor Heineke for the Washington football team going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Guys with minus matchups this week, the first one we're going to talk about is Derek Carr versus the Chargers. Next is going to be Kirk Cousins versus the Dog Pound defense. Next is going to be Kyler Murray versus the LA Rams. The next one has got a little bit of a tough matchup is Patrick Mahomes versus Philly. I know if you saw Dallas whoop up on Philly on Monday night, you might be thinking I'm crazy, but to be honest with you, everything went right that could possibly gone right for Dallas, and everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for Philly on Monday night. And also the last one with the negative matchup, minus matchup, whatever you want to say, is Daniel Jones versus the New Orleans Saints. Daniel Jones, last week we had him as a plus guy. This week we have him as a negative guy, so stay away from Daniel Jones at all costs. Now, we're going to just flip right over to the running backs. The running backs, top 5 this week. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Austin Eckler, who's got the matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. Very nice matchup for Austin Eckler this week. Number 4 is going to be the rookie, Mr. Harris from Pittsburgh. He's got a great matchup against Green Bay this week. Also, too, he's a little bit higher because Big Ben is the weakest quarterback in that division, so they are going to lean on Mr. Harris quite often. Number 3 coming in this week is going to be Alvin Kamara, AK-41, versus the New York Giants. Number 2 is going to be playing on Thursday Night Football, and Joe Mixon versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, same thing. Jacksonville's got a porous defense. And the number 1 running back this week, the guy who is going to absolutely ball out, is going to be the train, Derrick Henry, against the New York Jets. Guys with plus matchups this week, number 5 is Miles Sanders versus Kansas City. Number 4 is Elijah Mitchell, San Francisco versus Seattle. Next running back with the plus matchup is Kareem Hunt, Cleveland versus Minnesota. Number 2 is DeAndre Swift, Detroit at Chicago. And the number 1 most advantageous matchup is Antonio Gibson versus the Atlanta Falcons. And guys with minus matchups this week, guys you might want to put on the bench. First guy we're going to talk about is Ezekiel Elliott. I know, right? Ezekiel Elliott just absolutely showed up on Monday night. He absolutely crushed the Eagles, which is great. This week he plays the number 1 rush defense in all of the NFL in the Carolina Panthers. So if you are Ezekiel Elliott owner, tread very lightly this week. Number 4 is going to be Chase Edmonds, running back for the Arizona Cardinals. Again, they played the LA Rams. Tread very lightly. The next one is going to be Mike Davis versus the Washington football team. In case you don't know, Washington football team has, I think, 89 first-round draft picks on that defensive line, so just be very careful with him. The next one is going to be Damian Harris against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay doesn't give up rushing yards to anybody. And the last guy who you might want to put on the bench this week is Saquon Barkley versus the New Orleans Saints. Again, it's a terrible matchup. The Saints have a great front seven, so just be very cautious about that. If you do play Barkley, because you have to, don't expect him to get all the points in the world. Expect him to be very limited on the point gets for this week. Now, we are going to go straight over to the wide receiver. Coming in at number 5 this week is going to be Keenan Allen, Los Angeles Chargers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. So look for him to come number 5. Look for him to have a very nice week. Number 4 is going to be Devontae Adams versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 3, most point getter this week, we believe it's going to be Stephon Diggs versus the Houston Texans. Number 2, the best fantasy wide receiver this year so far, Cooper Kupp versus Arizona. Look for him to have a huge day again. Nothing's going to change there. And the number 1 receiver this week is going to be DK Metcalf versus the San Francisco 49ers. Like we said earlier, look for Russell to cook this week, and look for DK to have a wonderful week, and look for him to get, I'm going to say about 130 yards, probably 2 touchdowns. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. San Francisco is going to have a very long day in the secondary against Seattle. Gentlemen, with plus matchups this week, the first one we're going to start off with is DJ Moore plus matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys this weekend. Also, to not having Mr. McCaffrey in the lineup is going to elevate DJ Moore's target share, so look for him to have lots of targets this weekend. Number 4 is going to be Jacoby Myers, actually. New England versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just because the fact is Tampa Bay can't guard anybody in that secondary, but they can beat the crap out of any running back. Number 3 is going to be Jamar Chase. Again, on this Thursday night, look for him to have a nice night. Look for him to probably get 1, maybe 2 touchdowns against that porous Jacksonville defense, and look for him to have an uptick too as well, because T. Higgins is not going to be playing tonight, so Jamar Chase will be the number 1 receiver for Joe Burrow tonight. Number 2 is going to be Deebo Samuel versus the porous Seattle secondary. Just in case you don't know, Seattle has right now, they're giving up over 450 yards a game. They can't stop anybody. So what does that translate to? More points for the offense, more points for offense on both sides, excuse me. So look for San Francisco and Seattle to have a juggernaut of a plethora of points this weekend. And the number 1 guy with a very plus matchup this week is scary Terry McLaurin, the Washington football team, number 1 wide receiver against the Atlanta Falcons. So look for him to absolutely feast this weekend in Atlanta. Now we did the pluses. Now the 5 guys who you might want to watch out for this week, maybe sit. These are the minuses. The first guy we're going to talk about is Adam. I ain't feeling it this week in Thielen. They're playing the Cleveland Dog Pound. That's going to be a tough matchup. Number 4 is Marquise Hollywood Brown. Baltimore is number 1 wide receivers going against the very tough Denver Broncos cornerbacks. Number 3 is going to be Michael Pittman Jr. He is going to be somebody that we are not going to play this week, going up against the Miami secondary. I know Miami's had lots of trouble the last couple weeks, but one thing that is pretty decent are their cornerbacks. To be very, very cautious with that one. The next guy we're going to be very cautious about is CeeDee Lamb versus the Carolina Panthers. Carolina right now has the number 1 defense in all of NFL. They give up less than 50 yards on the ground, and their secondary is right there. They drafted all their defensive guys 2 years ago. They're gelling really, really well. Look for CeeDee Lamb to have a tough game this week. And the number 1 guy who is the guy that we're not playing this week is DeAndre Hopkins, Arizona number 1 wide receiver versus the LA Rams. Couple different reasons. Number 1, the Rams have the best cornerback in all the NFL with Jalen Ramsey. Number 2, D-Hop is not feeling good. His ribs are bruised up. He's banged up. So look for him to have a subpar DeAndre Hopkins type of game right now. So now we're going to go straight into the tight ends. The top 5 point getters for tight ends this weekend. Number 5 is going to be Logan Thomas. Again, plus matchup, Washington versus Atlanta. Number 4 is going to be Gronk. He has something to prove, obviously, coming from New England as well. It's not as big of a story as Tom Brady, but it is right up there. So look for Gronk to have a really nice game against the Patriots this week. Number 3, we're going to give this guy a little bit of a downtick just because the fact that they're going to be playing Philly. Philly does have a pretty good defense for the most part. It's going to be Travis Kelce. So he'll still be a top point getter, just not number 1 this week. Number 2, this guy's got a wonderful matchup. It's TJ Hawkinson versus the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears secondary sucks. They can't guard anybody. They're having a tough time with everything. Look for him to have a great day. And number 1 this week is George. I don't give a crap. I'm going to run over you. My helmet's going to come off and my hair's going to flow. Kittle. So look for him to have a plus matchup this week versus that porous Seattle secondary defense again. Look for him to be the one, in my personal opinion, who's going to get more points than anybody else from the San Francisco Niners this weekend, just because of the fact it's going to be a shootout and they're going to need him to be at his top. And George Kittle usually has pretty good games against Seattle. So look for him to keep that streak and keep everything continuing with that one. Now we're going to talk about the next 5 tight ends with plus matchups this week. Number 5 is Cole Kmet from Chicago. They're going to against Detroit. Look for him to have a very nice matchup this week. He is on the plus side. Next guy we're going to talk about is Knox from the Buffalo Bills, the Mafia, versus the Houston Texans. Look for Knox to have a plus matchup this week. Look for him, in my personal opinion, to get 1 touchdown this week against the Houston Texans. I think Josh Allen is going to target that big stud a couple extra times this week. Another guy at the plus matchup is Tyler Higbee. Los Angeles Rams versus the Arizona Cardinals. Just look for Tyler Higbee to keep going off, keep doing his thing. Higbee has been the number 2 receiver for Mr. Matthew Stafford since he's been back, other than Mr. number 1, Cooper Kupp. Nothing's going to change on that one. Another guy with the plus matchup is Jonnu Smith, tight end, New England versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, Tampa Bay secondary sucks. And another guy with a plus matchup is Dallas Goedert, Philly versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, the Chiefs secondary is absolutely porous. They're not very good at guarding anybody. Look for Philly to bounce back a little bit this week and have a much better offensive outputting than they had on Monday night, especially with the much weaker defense of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, tight ends who have negative matchups or tight ends that you might want to be a little bit more cautious about. First one, this is low-hanging fruit. Number 5 is Evan Ingram. He basically sucks. Number 4, the next tight end we're going to talk about is Kyle Pitts. Again, the Washington football team is no joke on the defensive end. Also, too, their secondary was number 1 last year. They're not playing up to that standard just yet this year, but this might be a get-right game for them too as well. So be careful with Kyle Pitts this weekend. The next guy we're going to talk about is Noah Fant, tight end, Denver versus Baltimore. Baltimore traditionally has a really nice defense, so just be very wary of playing Noah Fant this weekend. Next guy who's got a negative matchup too is Mark Andrews, tight end, Baltimore versus Denver. Again, Denver's got a really nice defense. Don't look for that game to be a very high-scoring game. Baltimore versus Denver might be like a 17-13 type of game, maybe 17-20. This might be the kicker game of the week, to be honest with you. And the last guy who's got a really minus matchup, you still probably want to start him. I just wouldn't expect his usual top 5 point output would be Darren Waller. Darren Waller is an absolute baller. There's no doubt about it. He's got a tough matchup this week against the LA Chargers. So just be very careful, be very cautious about that. Again, it's a interdivision matchup this week, and the Chargers know the Raiders. The Raiders know the Chargers. There's no secrets, nothing. It's going to be a surprise either way. So just be very careful with those guys. So those are our 5 up, 5 down, and our five top point getters this week, or as we like to call them over here, the triple nickel. So this is brand new that we're starting this week. We're going to keep this rolling here. It's a great way to get some plus matchups, some minus matchups, and then some guys who are going to be the top. So just kind of help you if you're on the border, if you're not too sure who to start, answer some of those questions that way. that will definitely help you with what we are feeling for week 4. So, all right, Two Fools Nation, thank you so much for checking us out. Thank you so much for seeing this video. Please ask questions. Let us know what's going on. Ask questions on Facebook. We got a new Two Fools in Fantasy Football page up there. So we'll be checking it out, answering questions, doing everything we can before week 4 kickoffs, which start tonight. Bengals versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. This should be a real, I don't want to say easy win, but this should be very, very nice for the Bengals. The Jacksonville Jaguars are probably going to be playing from behind all night, so look for them to play catch up. Look for Trevor Lawrence to throw the ball a ton again. So anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, share, and add. We really appreciate you all checking us out. We really appreciate you taking the time, looking at the videos, just kind of absorbing all the information. So that is it. So on with me on the next video will be Marty McFly, and I am Tyler, the uncool fool. Please, everybody, like, subscribe, share, add, tell everybody you can. We're trying to get 50 subscribers by the end of the month, and today's the end of the month, so I don't think that's gonna happen. But hey, it's okay, man. We're shooting for the stars, right? So. All right. Well, thank you so much for checking us out. We appreciate y'all. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy the rest of our videos. Take care. Bye-bye.